Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, or on Spotify, and on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's where you get 10 different channels, including a draft channel and a transaction channel. Our host updates. We keep you updated on everything, the place for the most heat, information, conversation, and more. Check out the link in the description. We call it Off the Floor. That will bypass the Apple upcharge. You pay $2.99 a month, and you can cancel at any time. Also, check out Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE. Put down your $5. You get $50 to play right away. Right now, just to update everybody on this, I know you just waited for this with bated breath. I know I am. We have a contest going between myself, Greg, Brady, and Alex, and let's just put it this way: we have dusted. Greg and I have dusted Alex and Brady. Like, they have no chance of coming back at this point. But you follow it anyway, and you can play along with us. So use the code 5FIVE. Put down your 5, and you get 50 to play right away. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yay, five on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds, down to Biscayne. Kept the flow playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick on the Five Reasons Sports. I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow me at Greg Sylvander. Make sure to check out all of our recent draft episodes with Adele, with Brady. We're going to keep doing those in case the Heat pick 20th. So we'll do that all the way up into the draft on June 25th, unless they trade the pick before then. And of course, we will be at the Heat Arena, Kaseya Center. We'll be there for their draft party, so to speak. And we will be broadcasting from there as well. So it's back at the arena this year. They moved it out for just 1 year. We will be back there, and we'll have more details on how you can go watch if you want. Now, I don't know if they're going to be making a pick, so we'll see. They could be making a pick for somebody else. And so we're going to pivot to that, and we're going to do a bunch of Kevin Durant episodes because that's what's in the news right now. And Greg and I and Alex and Brady will be updating you along with others in the network as reports are out there. But again, I want to be clear on something. Not every report you see is right. This is smokescreen season. That's the case under any circumstances as you get into June and July. And now you have this proliferation of folks who are not necessarily accredited media, but sometimes they get correct information and sometimes they're going for clicks, and it's hard to really tell. We'll try to help you sort through that. But I'm just going to tell you, and Greg is just going to tell you what we know, and then maybe who you can sort of trust who has information. So let's give you the latest. Let's start with Giannis, Greg, because I think that plays into this, and we've done episodes related to this. Brian Windhorst, who is credible, is reporting that Giannis is staying put. So let's just start with that information because that affects KD. I don't think this is a huge surprise as we saw this developing, but Giannis has been trolling on social media and doing other things along those lines. The situation in Milwaukee does look kind of bleak over the next couple of years, but it seems like he is intending to stay. So I guess the Heat were never going to get in that mix, though, right, Greg?
I mean, it would have been tough. I mean, we're talking about them getting outbid for a lot of other guys that are not in the prime of their career necessarily, and not Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I think it would have been tough for them to really cobble together an offer that they felt good about and also was better than everyone else's offer. So it's a little bit of a mix of both. I'm not necessarily surprised because Giannis has always seemed to me like he wanted to carve his own path through this thing. And I remember in the press conference, I think it was directly after they won the championship, he said something to the effect of like, I could have gone somewhere else and teamed up with other people, but I got it done here. This means more to do it this way. So I get it that he's going to stay there. The first thing that pops in my head, other than the fact that now one of the prominent players that everyone was going to be bidding for, maybe off of the market. And what does that mean for the rest of the players? It begs the question, what does Milwaukee have up their sleeve? What did they say to Giannis in the meeting that would have made him say, okay, I'll give y'all a chance to make this right? Because to your point, it's bleak. Dame's future is very much up in the air, because we know how the blood clot situations can be tenuous, and you don't know what's going to happen one day to the next, etc. So I don't know. I think that they have a lot of work to do on their roster, and so I'm just interested to see what they planned or what they proposed to Giannis that made him say, okay, I feel good about this. Let me stay put. If in fact that is the direction they go, and Windy is obviously credible. So we got to take him for his word at this point.
Yeah. And I would, and I don't see this changing much. I will say this, I don't really know what they could have presented to him that would, given him hope about the future. I mean, again, we'll see, but Bobby Portis a free agent. Middleton's gone. Dame's not going to be playing. I mean, you look at all this and you're like, okay, where do they go? Like, who's there? Forget, like, who's his number? I mean, he doesn't have a number 2. He doesn't have a number 3. He doesn't have a number 4 there. I don't really understand the direction. But again, I appreciate the loyalty. I mean, and I know, look, I know what you're going to hear from ESPN and all that. Well, he should go somewhere he can win. It proves he doesn't want to win. It's just because they want him in a bigger market. That's all. And so, I think we should respect the guys who want to see it out in a certain situation. I think that if we're going to say we want that when a guy actually does that, I think we should stick to it. With that said, what that means is that, Kevin Durant becomes next in terms of players that teams are trying to acquire. And I'm confused a little bit about some of the reporting on this. And I'll just start with what I reported yesterday. The Heat don't want to include Ke'lel Ware. Okay, they don't. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. I wasn't like breaking any significant news there, but it's just, in my reporting, I've just reinforced what was sort of obvious. They've got the 15th overall pick from last year, who had a good rookie season, who showed some flaws, but they're flaws that may be correctable. Certainly has upside that they can tap into with what they've developed, the way they've developed certain players before. He actually had a better statistical rookie season than Bam. I know the circumstances were a little bit different. Bam was playing behind Whiteside, who'd been maxed, but if you look at the overall numbers, he did have a better season than Bam as a rookie. Okay, and doesn't mean, and we've done episodes on this too, it doesn't mean that he's going to exceed Bam's accomplishments. You hope he does, because that'd be great for the organization. But nobody expected Bam at that time to become a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and be the second best player on 2 finals teams and make multiple All-Star games. Like, that's not what anybody expected. So I'm not going to put it past Ke'lel Ware on the same developmental track with the same team to get there when he may have more tools offensively than Bam came in with. Not necessarily some of the unique stuff that Bam does defensively, but there's a chance, okay? And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. So again, I'm not reinventing anything anywhere by saying that the Heat don't want to include him. They don't. And I guess the question becomes how much you believe, A, they want Durant, okay? B, these other teams want Durant and are willing to pony something significant up, and then where that leaves the Heat in terms of a negotiation with Phoenix. And so that's what we're going to touch on here. So let's get to the latest reporting. There are some reporters that, again, we've grown to trust over this process. There's one in Phoenix, John Gambodero, I believe his name is Gambo, they call him. And he's a radio host, but he seems very plugged in with what goes in the organization there. I'm not saying he's been right about everything, but he has been right more than most, I think, as we followed this, because we were following this from last year. And it's been his contention that Durant wants to play in Texas, and that we haven't seen KD, who is on social media all the time. Obviously, we haven't seen him challenge this necessarily, but it was the Spurs, it was the Rockets. These are 2 of the teams that Shams mentioned. The other teams that Shams mentioned, that Rich Kleiman, Durant's representative, was working with were, of course, the Heat, the Wolves, and the Knicks. Now, the Knicks reporters, a lot of whom I do trust, and I think Ian Begley is one of them, and he's been on top of everything in New York. He says the Knicks are not involved in this process. So honestly, on that one, I'm going to take his word on it. So if that's the case, And Toronto apparently had some conversations, according to some, but it seems like a dark horse at most. Then we're really talking about the two of the Texas teams, right? Houston, San Antonio. Dallas has been thrown out there by some, but I haven't really heard that recently. Uh, Minnesota, Miami. Okay. But there's also been reporting, Greg, that Minnesota doesn't want to include Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid, who has potential to be a free agent, that they don't want to include him. So if that's the case, then really Miami is competing with San Antonio and maybe Houston, but Houston has seemed disinclined, at least from some of the public reporting. How do you weigh the field right now before we get back into Ware?
I think although a lot of the streets are talking about Texas and about Houston and San Antonio, I think to your point, San Antonio being even the more interesting because of the treasure chest of assets they have, where they pick in this upcoming draft, and the fact that KD, it appears as if he is going to be moved prior to the draft. So there's just a lot of stuff that aligns with kind of what the Spurs have cooking. And so you look at that, right? But I don't want to underestimate Minnesota just yet. Anthony Edwards, his favorite player of all time is Kevin Durant. And I'd imagine that likely he, if asked by Minnesota, what do you want to happen, Anthony Edwards? You're the franchise player here that we want to keep around. He would probably bang the table, like bang his fist on the table for Kevin Durant. And we've also heard this thing, and I don't know if like this gets picked up by one person and then everyone starts saying it, that like Phoenix is hell bent on getting a center out of this process. I mean, Rudy Gobert's a center, so I mean, there's ways that you could construct that. So I wouldn't.
Well, actually, I want to have Matt Moore on the podcast. That's HP Basketball, because honestly, I think he's the only one I've seen report that. And Matt was supposed to come on the pod this week, but I kind of mangled the schedule there. But like, have you seen that from anywhere else? Because I think I've only seen that from Matt. I haven't seen that reported by ESPN or elsewhere that they want to send.
To your point, maybe I'm confusing multiple reports with multiple aggregators that are reporting the same information. So you could be onto something there. But yeah, it begs the question with Gobert and the fact that Minnesota took that swing and has made the conference finals and been a more winning program with Gobert helping anchor that defense. Like, would Phoenix think that could be some sort of fix? What does Devin Booker think about all this? There's a lot of it where I would say Minnesota's still involved. And we're going to talk about what Miami's going to have to pony up to get in this race. And if we kind of really hone in on Texas, because I agree with you. I think like New York, what are they going to trade Mikal Bridges back to Phoenix? Like, I don't know. I don't see.
Doesn't seem like they want Towns either. So I that doesn't seem likely.
Yeah, I mean, if Devin Booker tells Phoenix that he'd like Cat, I mean, maybe there could be something there. But again, we're just connecting dots. I don't think any of that comes to fruition. So then you get down to San Antonio and Houston. Even if Houston's reluctant to get in this negotiation or having to kind of bid, them and San Antonio can pretty easily put offers on the table that if Miami doesn't put some of its most treasured assets in this conversation, they can't even really get in the door in terms of talking about competing with these teams for offers. So the interesting thing, Ethan, will be now that Giannis appears to be signaling back to Milwaukee, do teams increase their offers and their interest for Kevin Durant because like he's the big fish that's out there, or does someone else pop up, John Morant, someone like that out of nowhere you've got another big name that people can bid for? Because I think that's going to impact the way that, you know, like I was thinking, gosh, Giannis in San Antonio with Fox and Wemby, like imagine what that would look like and how quickly they could kind of make a run. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting process here. The Heat could get outbid easily. They've only got really one way, I think personally, that they can make this compelling and competitive for them to make an offer. And to your point and how we started this episode, it's going to involve draft capital and it's going to involve Ke'lel Ware.
Yeah, most likely. Well, let's get to this in a second, because if you have any capital, you should be checking out Cash App. Now, I know everybody here thinks that I'm old. I am, and that I don't do anything modern. But sending money. I mean, I don't literally walk the cash to people. I promise you that. And yes, I do have checks, but I'm not using those that frequently. I use Cash App. Sending money with Cash App feels safe. That's one of the reasons I use it. They look out for you if something seems sketchy, or if they see maybe sending money to a potential scammer. They'll warn you, make you think twice before you hit send. It's like having a personal bodyguard for your cash. You can even spice up your payments with custom text, stamps, and backgrounds, because why should paying your friend for those tickets be so boring? If for whatever insane reason you don't already have Cash App, and Greg has it, I have it, Brady has it, Alex has it, we all have it in the network, just download it from your phone's app store, sign up, enter our code on the floor. That's on the floor in your profile, not to be confused with off the floor or Discord server. Send $5 to a friend and you get $10 just for getting started. For limited time only, new Cash App users can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash for real, no catch. Just download Cash App and sign up. Use our exclusive referral code on the floor in your profile. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days. You get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. So I want to mention one more thing, because we'll probably dive into this in another episode. I was going to do this one with Adele, but I want to throw this out there. You typically get a sort of a sense of players that the Heat have worked out by this point in the draft process, particularly when they have a first round pick. I start to hear some things also. I'm not saying it's leaked from the Heat all the time. It's agent, others around. We hear stuff, and I'm hearing very little. You're hearing very little.
Yeah.
Right? There's been very little out there about. I mean, it seems like the players we're hearing about them working out are undrafted.
Correct.
Like likely undrafted players. That would seem to signal, unless again we just don't know anything, or we're being sandbagged, or anything else along those lines, they're not really planning to pick at 20. Are you getting that sense?
I mean, I hesitate to go all in on saying yes, that's the sense I get, because I think the Heat do a couple things really well. One, I won't say they don't leak, because you know, everybody leaks some stuff sometimes, right? But they're very tight-lipped about who they work out. Like, there's some teams, like I think the Trailblazers, they announce every single
Mm-hmm.
workout that they do. It's like
Mm-hmm.
just maybe company policy, you can call it. Well, the Heat's
Yep.
policy is the opposite. We're not going to say anything. I think they may even go to the degree of sometimes maybe asking agents or players to stay quiet if possible. But sometimes in the draft interviews, when like they're asked questions in the scrum in, like, let's say Portland, they may get a question like, where else have you been? Where are you heading next? And then you hear players slip up and say things. Also, agents talk. They say, my guy went here. To your point, as we record this, we're about 2 weeks away from draft night. And usually players that would be in the Heat's draft range would at least have been worked out, or we would have heard about to some degree. There's always some that slip through the cracks. But I mean, we've had laundry lists of 20 to 30 players in past years that I and you have documented on podcasts of all the players they've worked out. And that's kind of how we've shaped our draft content, right? Like, we take that list and we pare it down and figure out who we think is the best fit. This year, there's not a single first round prospect that we can find that the Heat has worked out. So they're either being really, really quiet, or they're not expecting to pick at 20. And I get the sense it could be the latter. I know that would fly in the face of what they've done recently, when we thought they could have traded picks, and they've kept 3 in a row now. I don't think I've ever remembered them keeping 4 first-round picks, so maybe that's also part of why I'm thinking this way. But when you connect all those dots, the fact that it's so damn quiet, you're not even seeing, because everyone loves to come to Miami, so you're not even seeing like the first-round prospect slip up with a picture on South Beach, and you're like, oh, he must be in Miami to work out. So that it's just weird. I think that it likely signals trade. And I do think, like Shams put out, that there's certain teams that want to get this Kevin Durant stuff figured out sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
I would categorize Miami as one of those teams because of the date with which Duncan Robinson has an early termination option, and all of the things that come into play with that. Miami's going to want to get this. They're not going to want to slow play this. So it's interesting. I don't get the sense that they love anyone in this draft. And that's the other thing that I think we should consider with pick 20. Whereas they've in the past, like Ke'lel Ware jumped off the page to them when they got him in their setting. I don't get the sense that anyone has done that yet.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there because I think you're right about the Heat don't always control as much as they want to. They don't always control whether stuff gets disclosed because they can tell an agent or a player not to put it out there, and it's happened and many times anyway. And it's in the benefit of the agent and the player to put out workout information because it may force other teams to think, oh, wait, we got to go get this guy sooner. And players want to be picked higher because of the salary slotting and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's interesting that we're already, what is today? June 13th. We're 12 days out, and you're right. I haven't heard about a single workout of a play. And you know what? The Suns have worked out players in the 20s that are likely to go in the 20s. Some of that stuff has gotten out. So I'm just putting that out there, and I'll do an episode with Adele about some of the undrafteds that they've looked at. But I'm putting that out there because we know that to make this deal with the Suns, they're almost certainly going to have to include the 20th pick, right? The Suns, from all reports, from credible people, they want to pick right away. They don't want to wait for late. I mean, they'll take a later pick too, but they want to pick in this draft. Now, San Antonio has the second pick and the 14th pick, and nobody believes they're going to trade the second pick to get Durant, but they have the 14th pick. Minnesota has a pick that's better than Miami's, which Miami, of course, is not using its own. They're using Golden State's. And Houston has a pick that's better than Miami's. So for Miami to even get in this picture, they're going to have to at least move the 20th pick, we believe. And the fact that they haven't worked out, I'm not. No, I won't say that. I don't want to get that. That's going to aggravate. The fact that we haven't heard about workouts of players who may be in that range in the way that we have in past years is just interesting. Now let's get to the where part of this. The Heat have something that I think is attractive to Phoenix, and I think there's a particular Twitter user that keeps pushing this Heat expert something. And I apologize, but he listens by. He has made this point, and I think is right based on my research. The Duncan Robinson contract is very useful to Phoenix in their current situation. No other team in this mix has a contract. And I don't want to speak about Duncan, who's, obviously is a great success story in his own right, and is leading three-point shooter in team history and first to 100 and 200 and 300. And Duncan's done some great things. But we're just talking about in the context of this trade. His contract with the, as you mentioned, the partial guarantee, the early termination, all that is very valuable potentially to a team that is trying to get its tax burden and get under the second apron and not be so expensive like Phoenix was last year. I actually think it may be Miami's best asset in this particular negotiation, not in every negotiation, but in this particular negotiation. The Heat also have Wiggins' contract. Wiggins is a player who can help a team now. We can discuss how much or whether or not he's worth the money that he's owed the rest of the way, but he can help you stay competitive right now, which is something that they want to do. It also helps fill up a lot of the gap in the salary between, with Durant. And then the Heat have some young players. Now, whether or not Matt Moore and others are right that they want a center, you and I are, I guess, in agreement that of the Heat's young players, Jovic, Larson, Jaquez, Ware would hold the most value to them, most likely, correct?
No doubt. 100%. That's the guy. To your point, they're going to have their pick included. Golden State's pick that is their pick. And then
Right.
this is where this gets interesting. The Heat have the ability to sell the Phoenix Suns on this. We may be the only package that awards you three things that are valuable in different respects. One is draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
Second is young player that they like at a position of need, if we're going to go down this Ke'lel Ware conversation. And the third is the Duncan Robinson financial benefit of his contract. Like, I think that's where the Heat, when you're curating the offer, that when Phoenix looks at it, says, wow, this checks 3 boxes on our list here. Like, I think that's how the Heat get in the mix with teams like San Antonio and Houston that obviously have more to offer.
But can they get in the mix without Ke'lel Ware? And it depends on how serious San Antonio and Houston are, right? And how serious
Exactly.
Minnesota is.
Yeah.
So really, to a certain degree, that's sort of out of their control. Like what we've talked about, if San Antonio wants to get in the mix in a serious way, especially if Durant is open to going there, which by all accounts he seems to be. Whether it's a preference or not for him, I can't speak to that reporting, but he certainly does not seem, based on everything we've heard, to be disinclined to go to San Antonio, right? And who would be? I mean, it's a stable organization, and you're playing with arguably the next face of the league, who's, by the way, doing all the right things to get better too, and so he's going to continue to get better. So if San Antonio wants to get involved, they get involved. Houston's a little murkier. We've talked about that because they have so many young pieces. But which young pieces do you really want? Which are they willing to give up? Jalen Green, does that excite Phoenix when they already have Booker? Feels like a lot of duplication there. They still have Beal under contract. So to me, this is kind of like it's sort of like a musical chairs to a certain degree, where like the Heat may be the last one running around the chair when the music stops, and so Phoenix may give him a seat at the table. Like that's what it feels. It almost feels like the Suns have to explore these other options first and see what's out there, because there's more to potentially mine from it. And then you come back to Miami. And then with Miami, it becomes, okay, how much of a game of chicken do you want to play? Especially if both teams want to get this done, or teams both, there's motivations to get it done by the draft at the latest. And, again, we'll come back to this. Do you think Jovic is due an extension? Okay. I know that the Heat made him available to the Suns at the deadline. You and I both like Nico. I know a lot of people in the network like Nico. They have not found a consistent role for him, though. And I'm not sure they're going to. Like, it just feels like he was such an out of the box pick for them. And it's just, Spo's always going to go back to his principles. And, Nico gives them I think, there's so much room for growth offensively with him, with the way he sees the floor, the transition stuff, but it doesn't really fit with the way that they've played lately. So I wonder if, I hate to say it, a player, we talk about how the Heat develop certain guys, but he's kind of the opposite, where I sort of worry if he's going to be wasted in Miami with the way that they play. So if that's the case, if it's Nick, if it's Duncan, it's Wiggins, it's Jovic, it's, how many picks are we talking? The 20th pick and then one future first, right?
Maybe some swaps mixed in there. I think if that honestly is the deal, that like you're talking about the musical chairs, that Miami is the one dancing around the chair and that's the offer that's in, they couldn't run to the phone fast enough to call the trade into the league office, in my opinion. If that's what they were able to get Kevin Durant for, it would allow them that short window to go and try to make a run at something. They'd keep Ware out of the deal. I don't think they're in love with anyone at 20 anyway for this particular draft. And obviously one future pick is maybe one more pick than most people would want to give, but we've talked about this, you got to give to get. And so
right,
if that was it, that they could basically get him for like 2 first-round picks and salary matching and salary saving to some degree with Duncan Robinson, that's ideal for Miami, right? I guess maybe part of this is that we've gone through this so many summers, Ethan, where the Heat are looking to do business on their timeline at their price. And if it ain't at their price, they're walking away from the negotiating table to some degree. I'm interested to see if they really would increase their offer, get Ware involved, because that's really where. Well, that's funny. I say Ware again. That's the trump card, so to speak, that I think the Heat, if they were to be willing to offer 20, a future first or a pick swap or something like that, and a young dynamic center with upside that people have already seen. So like, it's kind of not a known or proven commodity, but at least it's not like a future pick that you have no idea what they're going to be. To me, like that, it, like I said earlier, checks a lot of boxes for Phoenix and for Miami. I mean, it would be a lot to give up, but you also would be kind of selling yourself on a short-term path to contention if you think Durant, Bam, and Tyler can be the type of 3 players that you build around, supplement, and make a run.
Okay, so one thing I want to throw out there if they make this trade, let's say they make that trade and they don't include Ware, you realize Ware's not going to start here next year.
Yeah, Durant's not gonna. I mean,
Durant can't play 3 anymore.
Yeah.
He hasn't played 3 in years. And I'm sorry, Sean, I am going with positions on this one because
that's what I was about to say.
Right, I'm thinking about who he's going to guard, and he has not played the 3 for years. Like, people are remembering that, haven't watched him in the past few years. So what you're really talking about then is having a bigs rotation, so to speak, of Bam and KD starting and Ware coming off the bench, right, to play with either of them. That's kind of what you're doing there. And then you have a hole at the 3, don't you? I mean, what is, because Wiggins is gone in this scenario, so you got to sign somebody at the 3, and we've talked about the challenges of signing Davion Mitchell if you get KD, but you kind of have to figure out a way to do it because otherwise, I don't know who's playing with Tyler in the backcourt. So I guess, is Jaquez gone in this trade? If that's what, was he a throw-in in this trade? I mean, it's more than a throw-in at this stage, but well, maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, it would really help Miami if Jaquez, who everybody thought was going to be like mini Jimmy, or you know what I mean? Like, for him to regain some of that form, he's kind of the perfect player that could slot into that spot that they were missing, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's like, and also his value's probably never been lower than it is right now. So my inclination is to say that if Ware were to get mixed into this deal, even if Heat fans hated that, I do think one of Jovic or Jaquez would be spared in that scenario and likely be, frankly, counted on to produce, because they just wouldn't have a lot of avenues to add a ton more other than making a follow-up trade, which is another episode.
Let me ask you this, and then we're going to answer the question at the very end of this episode here now, since we both haven't completely answered it. If you traded Ware and you keep Jovic out of the deal and you extend Jovic, do you see any way they could start a front court of Bam, Durant, and Jovic?
It's interesting.
Can Jovic guard out there enough that you can make that work? Because if that's the case, Jovic adds playmaking to the lineup then.
And maybe shooting. It would be a matter of if can Bam and Davion Mitchell clean up enough around the other guys that you got out there. And also, if Davion and Bam are off the floor, what the hell do you do defensively? So it's a little tricky. But I mean, it's not a whole hell of a lot trickier than even Jaquez defensively and what they need to do. I know that that's a better fit offensively in the front court next to Bam and KD, hypothetically. But I on defense, to your point, there'd be a lot more moves that would have to take place for, I think, this to make sense in every way for Miami in terms of like just straight basketball fit.
Okay, so in the 33rd minute here, we're going to do this in 2 minutes or less. So you've got a minute and I got a minute. It comes to this. Phoenix explores everything with San Antonio, with Houston, Minnesota. There's no fit. Comes back to Miami. Maybe Miami's competing against one of those teams, let's say, at the end of this, okay? Phoenix comes to them and says, fine, okay? We've been talking about KD for months with you. We'll do the deal. You can have KD. You can introduce him tomorrow. But we need Duncan's contract. We need Wiggins, again, as a stopgap. We need the 20th pick. We need a future first. I guess it'd be 2030 first. Is that right? I think something like those lines. Okay. So we need a future first. We can talk about protections. Maybe there's some protections on it. We need at least one pick swap. Okay. Which obviously they would decide in that case. But it's got to be Ware. You can introduce KD tomorrow. You can excite your fan base. You can put KD next to Bam and to Tyler. You can see if that works better than KD next to Booker and Beal, or KD next to Harden and Irving, which that one didn't work because they were not together long enough. And you can see if you can make this thing happen.
First thing I think Miami asks is, can we sub out Andrew Wiggins for Terry Rozier in this deal, and you'll get that expiring contract, and we can use Wiggins as the defensive kind of wing that we need with these players that we're keeping? Because I think that you could cobble together an interesting 5 if Wiggins remained after the Durant trade. I know that a lot of people speculate Wiggins would be included, but Terry Rozier has comparable money.
Well, Wiggins could be flipped for something else too if you needed to do that. If that's the case, I mean, you could keep him, you could send him. We haven't talked about Rozier in this context, but yes, I mean Terry, regardless of the play, $24 million, right? So that's $24 million. That's an expiring contract after next season. But let's say I'm going to press you on this. Let's say Phoenix says no. This is the deal. This is it. Okay. Either that or we're just going to take whatever it is that San Antonio offers us or Houston offers us or Minnesota offers, or maybe Toronto gets in the mix, or maybe some other team that wanted Giannis gets in the mix here at the last second. And they call their bluff and all the rest of this. They say, this is it. This is it. We're walking away. No more phone calls. This is what we need. We want Wiggins because we want to stay competitive. We want Duncan, his contract. We'll decide what we're going to do with that. We need the first round pick. We need the 20th pick. We need a 20-30, lightly protected, okay, in some sense. One pick swap and Ke'lel Ware. You say, this is it. You had 20 seconds to decide. You say,
I say yes, do it. I listen, I was here for Caron Butler and Lamar Odom leaving for Shaq. I understand that people think that that's a lot, but to me, if you're putting me on the spot, and you are right now, I'm saying you do the deal, you take the short-term path, see what can become of it. Because I'll say this, that you are in a position where you're not locked into this forever if you get Kevin Durant. So I would just say that I think it's worth the shot. And I know how the Heat think. And I also know that I've seen them put together teams with pieces that don't fit. 2006 and made it work and made it run. So who am I to doubt them? And also, I would love to talk to Kevin Durant about hip hop whenever I do get to cover games. So bring KD to Miami.
I want this for two reasons. It has nothing to do with basketball. Well, some of it has to do with basketball. One is I want KD going at Heat Twitter because he does that better than anybody else. And two, we need the damn downloads. Greg, appreciate it. I got you on the spot in the 36 minute. We'll do more episodes on this as we go forward. I will say I would swallow really hard on this one. But I also say this. We have a habit, and I think teams have the habit here of falling in love with your own players just because you drafted them. If Ke'lel Ware was just a hypothetical 15th pick in the draft that you hadn't seen some flashes from, you'd throw it in, right? And there's no guarantee what he's going to become.
Exactly.
So that's the thing. But do I think he can become something? Yes. I also think he needs to be in the right system and program for that to happen. I don't know that Phoenix's infrastructure is the best for that at this point. But again, that would be their problem or to solve at that stage. All right. Thanks, Greg. We'll be back with more. Again, Cash App, use the code when you download it on the floor, and Prize Picks, use the code FIVE. Have a good one.